Hey everyone, it's Yajin here, and today we're going to be talking about some high-level strategies on how you can go ahead and start losing weight and keep those results off for long term. And this video, like I mentioned, is going to be a little more about those high-level strategies. We're not going to dive deep into any tactics. However, what I really want to cover is a mindset shift into what weight loss really looks like, right? And because I think for a lot of people out there, they have a misperception about what it really takes in order for you to lose weight. And if you're not looking at the right picture there, it can make it very difficult and stressful on you, your body, and people around you as well, because you're kind of looking at one thing whereas that's not the right picture. And I was actually thinking about something today, and I think that a lot of anxiety and stress that we have is because we have a misconception of, in the case of weight loss, this is what it should look like. And because when our reality doesn't quite align with that, that creates that friction, which then turns into stress, turns into anxiety, and starts keeping us up at night. It starts getting in the way of our life, our relationships, and things of that nature. So again, today the goal is to kind of cover that mindset shift that I think is really going to help you out if you're getting started with weight loss, or even if you've been on your path to weight loss and hit a couple of roadblocks and feel like you're running into some sort of obstacle or challenge there. So to start out, let's just dive straight into that mindset shift. And you have to understand that weight loss in itself is a huge industry. It's like a multi-billion-dollar industry. You can look at the supplements, the weight loss programs, all of these different avenues to go about it. And truth is, a lot of these methods work. A lot of these also do not work, just because there are so many people trying to lose weight that I think because of that, a lot of people are willing to spend money. So there are a lot of avenues out there. Again, some work, some don't work. And by understanding the mindset and what it actually takes in order for you to lose weight, we can sift through most of those things and figure out what actually is going to work for you. So one of the first things, you have to understand that weight loss doesn't come immediately, right? And what I mean by that is, if you're signing up for a short program or going on some sort of quick diet, you have to understand the mechanics of weight loss, but also weight gain. How did you gain that weight in the first place, right? Odds are you're probably eating more food than your body needs. I think that a lot of the times, a good way to look at weight gain is an imbalance, okay? Not just of your calories. A lot of people talk about hormones, this and that, but of your health in general, right? If you're not getting as much exercise as you need, you're not burning as much calories, your body's not running as efficiently as it can be, you're eating more food than your body needs, you're not getting sleep at night, stress builds up. Cortisol has a strong relationship with weight gain, right? Cortisol, the stress hormone that we experience. Maybe you're experiencing some tough times at work, in your personal life, in your relationships, whatever it is, and those are causing you to take part in behaviors, whether it's a lot of drinking, eating foods that probably shouldn't be a part of your diet. Those small things start to add up, and then long term, over time, give it some weeks, months, years, that adds into weight gain. And then you kind of start to sit in this position of like, okay, what do I do to fix this, right? So first you have to understand what got you there in the first place, because if we can figure that out, then we know exactly where to tackle it from, right? If you're just not getting in enough exercise, then you have to figure out a way to get yourself started on a new exercise program and routine. What that is going to look like is going to look different from someone who needs to change their diet up a little bit. And we're going to go into both of those avenues a little later on as well. But first of all, ask yourself, what got me here in the first place? Because I know for some people, it might look like your problem is you eat a little too much desserts. But there's a difference between really liking desserts and then eating like a quart of ice cream. I've been there myself. Eating a quart of ice cream because you had a rough day at work or with your relationships, and that was the reason that caused you to eat, that quart of ice cream. So instead of trying to stop yourself from eating ice cream, you got to deal with that root cause, right? So when we're going about trying to get started on a form of long-term weight loss, think of habits, think of behaviors, think of root causes, the reasons that are really kind of triggering our body to go into an imbalance where we're not taking part in the healthy habits and behaviors that we should be. We're not eating the right foods, we're not getting enough exercise, we're not getting enough of sleep, we're feeling stressed out all the time. Those are usually the 4 categories that I find most people need to balance out before they truly start to experience long-lasting weight loss results. But before that, I hope that doesn't discourage you at all when you're listening, because the thing about habits and behaviors are, once you get those dialed in, it's almost like a system that's going to keep on producing results for you over and over and over. And once you get that dialed in, I always tell people, if you look at someone who is at a healthy weight, it's not like they're working so hard, they're having a miserable time, they never eat ice cream or cheeseburgers. I love cheeseburgers. It's just that they've got most of the systems dialed in when it comes to what they should be eating, when they should be eating, how much they should be eating, when they exercise, how much they exercise, when they should be exercising. And all of these things are kind of like built out, and it's just like a little system or framework that their whole life operates out of, and they don't have to worry about what weight they're at, because basically their habits and behaviors take care of that for them. So that's really my goal for you, to be able to understand how it is that you can go about building out your own system, your own framework or infrastructure to help keep you healthy and lose weight over the long term. So let's dive first into nutrition. I think nutrition is definitely one of the most important aspects of weight loss and living a healthy lifestyle, because we are what we eat, right? And when it comes to nutrition, a lot of people tend to gravitate towards these diets, these supplements, these pills, which I don't want to bash on anything, because for the right person, something would work. I'm not going to say anything about keto or the vegan diet or this or that, because it works for a lot of people. There was a study that came out recently, kind of, I don't want to say bashing intermittent fasting, but basically saying that a lot of the mechanisms that we thought were working in humans when it comes to intermittent fasting on weight loss didn't seem to really have any profound effects or any effects at all. However, for a lot of people, you'll hear their stories and find out that, hey, intermittent fasting has really changed their life and transformed their weight loss journey. So when it comes to the strategy, overall, when you're just getting started, I would try to identify what needs to be changed. Just pull out pen and paper, use your notepad on your phone, write down everything you're eating and drinking on a regular basis, from when you wake up in the morning to when you fall asleep at night. Track that for 3 to 7 days, just so you get a little snapshot, an overview of where you're at and what needs to change, right? And as far as like general nutrition guidelines go, when you're just getting started out, if you're trying to lose weight, you can count calories, you can count macros. I tend not to gravitate towards those options, because it creates a little more friction inside of the experience. So it makes it harder for you to actually go through with it. If you're tracking every little thing, like what happens when you go out and eat, and it's like, oh wait, how many calories were in there? How many protein was in there? Like, what's going on? Instead, I usually ask people to start with a really simple framework. And there's a couple simple rules that I ask everyone to follow when we're tracking weight loss results, and their nutrition. Okay, first one is, if you're eating animal proteins, try to stick to lean proteins. Okay, that's 85%+ or more in lean proteins for those animal proteins that you're consuming. Now, when it comes to carbs, let's just try to stick to high fiber carbs. Think sweet potatoes, think quinoa, not so much breads, white rice, pastas, right? When it comes to sugars, try to remove as many added sugars as you can from your diet as possible. If you can eliminate all of them, that would be awesome. Keep at least 50% of your meal fruits and vegetables. And then the final one is, try to cut out as much processed food as possible. Now, for the added sugars and the processed foods, if you were able to fix those 2 points alone, you would probably see a dramatic shift in how many calories you're consuming. And that's kind of the reason why I don't like to start people off with counting calories or counting macros, because that added friction there makes it very difficult for you to get started. And when you run into a roadblock of you don't know what to do, that is enough to kind of throw you off the wagon. And again, I'm always focused on long-term, consistent habits and behaviors. So whatever is easiest for you to get started. And when you cut out those added sugars and you cut out processed foods, again, those 2 points alone, you're going to reduce your caloric consumption dramatically. So again, 5 rules: animal proteins, stick to lean proteins. When you're eating carbs, stick to fiber-rich carbs. Vegetables, at least 50% fruits and vegetables in each of your meals. Cut out added sugars and cut out any processed foods that you're consuming. Really easy place for you to start. And usually how I have people track it is just on a little checklist, so that you look at one meal at a time. Did you follow these rules? Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. Takes a minute a day, and it's a really great form of tracking and accountability for you. Now, when it comes to exercise, I know a lot of people look at exercise from a point that's like, oh, and I do too sometimes. I'm a trainer. I'm literally, you probably can't tell from this video, but I'm hanging out inside of a gym right now. And yeah, sometimes I don't feel like exercising as well. But again, if we're thinking about producing those long-term results for ourselves, then we have to understand, how are we going to get ourselves to move more on a regular basis, right? And one of the easiest ways to go about that is to play some sort of sport. Take part in some activity that you can truly enjoy. And I think that's one of the reasons why CrossFit is so exciting for some people out there. Not for everyone, for some people, because it helps keep them moving, it helps keep them excited. There's that community aspect, the competitive aspect. You're always pushing and challenging yourself, trying to reach new levels there. And that's what you basically get packaged into any sport or activity that you can play on a regular basis. So I would say go out there, whether it's basketball or volleyball. I play badminton myself. Maybe it's a high school sport that you haven't played for like 10 or 15 years and you want to pick back up. But those are one of the best ways for you to, I always like to make the example, it's like if I had you jump onto a treadmill for 30 minutes, you would probably be out of there by like 10 or 15 minutes. Or you would do it for like 2 or 3 days and you're like, no, forget this, I'm not gonna do this. However, if you're someone who plays sports or has played sports before, you're gonna understand that feeling of like, you're gonna check the clock or your watch and you've been playing for like 3 hours, which is like basically the equivalent of you doing some form of cardio for 3 hours. And you're like, oh wait, it's been 3 hours? I could still go another 2 hours if I really wanted. Excuse me. And that's the kind of magical part about playing sports that I think, you'll never get yourself to sit on a treadmill for like 3 hours. Like, good luck going about doing that. So find an activity or sport that you really enjoy. And also when it comes to exercise, although, I think it's super important to have that activity or sport that you enjoy, some form of strength training, of weightlifting, of actual practicing these movements, building strength in your body, flexibility, mobility, and working out those kinks. Because once you start playing a lot of sports, what happens is your body's going through these repetitive motions over and over and over and over again, and it can become very imbalanced. Those imbalances later on lead to a lot of issues that people notice in the form of pains, of aches, of injuries. And my biggest thing is, try to work on that from the beginning so you don't get to the point where you're actually having trouble with those issues down the line. So when it comes to exercise, find activities that are enjoyable for you and make it very easy for you to push yourself, to stick to it, stay consistent, and keep at it for long term. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about is lifestyle. All right, when it comes to lifestyle changes, I'm talking about things mainly like sleep, like hydration, like stress. And the reason why these are important, because some of these are smaller, not as important as exercise or nutrition. But when it comes to something like sleep, the studies are very clear that a lack of sleep or sleep deprivation basically causes you to consume more calories on a regular basis. Not only that, but the calories that you consume are typically not as great for your health and well-being as you would otherwise. And on top of that, sleep deprivation also makes it harder for you to lose weight. So when it comes to actual weight loss, sleep is pretty important, right? Not only is it's basically saying that not getting enough sleep is going to cause you to eat more of foods that are not good for you, and make it harder for you to lose weight. That's literally like terrible, right? So if you're not getting enough sleep, you can imagine just how big of a difference that would make on your regular, activities of daily life. And trust me, you're just going to feel a lot better. And I totally understand some people have busy schedules. You don't have that much time to sleep, whether you have to take care of the kids or get to work or do any of those types of things. But I'm gonna challenge you, if you can, 30 more minutes a day, an hour more a day. A really great book about sleep is called Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker, and it goes through so much information about sleep. It's absolutely insane. So if you're interested about sleep, I would definitely recommend you read that book, Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. But basically what it says in that book is pretty much every person needs between 8 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And the actual amount of people in the population that can get by without having to sacrifice some form of their health and well-being with less than 8 hours of sleep per night is basically a fraction of 1%. So for those of you out there who are like, I can kind of get by with like 5 or 6 hours a night, odds are probably not. And another scary thing about sleep is that with our average energy levels, let's say our energy level is at 100% if we're getting enough sleep, we're going to feel energized. However, if we fell off the wagon for a couple of days and we're only getting like 5 or 6 hours of sleep, our energy level might drop down to like 75%, right? The crazy thing about sleep is if we start sleep depriving our body again and again and again and again, all of a sudden our average is going to drop from that 100 down to 75. So all of a sudden we feel like, oh, this feels about normal, you know. I'm not doing too bad going on 5 or 6 hours of sleep per night, when realistically your energy threshold has dropped from 100 down to 75, and it's just that now your body almost feels like, oh, 75% energy is normal. That's kind of a scary thought because you almost don't know when you need that energy and recovery, right? So when it comes to sleep, make sure you're getting enough sleep. And touching just briefly on the topic of stress, I've seen a lot of people, you know, they might be doing really great in a diet or a workout program, any sort of routine that they're doing, but some sort of stressful activity that's popping up in their life on a regular basis would totally derail them. And I probably have been there myself. And you know, whether this comes out as eating foods that are not great for you, or binge eating, or drinking, or you know, doing any other sort of activity to kind of cope with those stresses in your life, at the end of the day, if you don't fix the stressor, what's actually causing that, then you're gonna have a really hard time, you know, making any significant change, because that stressor is just gonna keep popping up again and again and again and again. So if whether it's something in your work or relationship or just something you're not dealing with, and I know right now like everyone's probably super stressed out, I get it, but see if you can deal with that problem before you move on to the next step, because having that stress there, having kind of like those emotions or whatever it is hidden deep down inside of you, and it's like it really just gets in the way of everything else. So try to fix that. You know, I'm not going to dive into that too much. I'm not a therapist, obviously, but going into lifestyle behaviors, those are really things that are important, because not addressing them first and foremost is going to mess up your everything else that has to do with your weight loss, really. So that would be something to really pay attention to address before you get started in exercise, get started in nutrition, or anything else you have in mind. Now, I've probably been talking for a really long time, so now you're like, okay, where do I actually start? If you are starting from ground zero, you haven't gotten started yet, or you're still brand new, relatively fresh to the whole weight loss journey, then I would say the one thing you gotta focus on is consistency. That is what derails everybody. So how do you stay consistent? It starts out by starting small. And you might not like to hear that answer, but I was listening to a doctor on this podcast the other day, and he was kind of talking about an occasion where he was speaking with this patient. This patient was a little overweight, low energy levels, wasn't feeling that great, and his health markers were starting to slide towards the not so good side. So the doctor's like, hey, look, we need to get you to start exercising. What do you want to do? And the guy was like, hey, you know, I think I want to do strength training. It's something that I used to do in high school, but I kind of fell off the wagon in the past couple of years, so I really want to be able to get back to that. So the doctor's like, oh, great. Strength training would be super beneficial. Do you think you can start out with 45 minutes 3 times a week? And the guy's like, oh, no problem. You know, free schedule, I can definitely find 45 minutes 3 times a week to get that done, right? And for a lot of us, that's probably the truth. And so the doctor kind of schedules a checkup 4 weeks later and lets the patient go off on his way. So the next time the patient comes in 4 weeks later, the doctor's like, hey, how's it going? How's the workout program going? Strength training, 45 minutes, 3 times a week, right? And the guy's like, I don't know about that. Work was busy. I never really got around to doing it. And the reason why was because starting out with a 45-minute workout 3 times a week is a lot to process, especially if you haven't been doing anything at all recently. So what the doctor was thinking is like, okay, I have to figure out a way in order for this guy to basically get back on the wagon and build up that consistency. Otherwise he's never gonna get started. So for the doctor, he's like, hey, do you mind if I show you a quick 5-minute strength training routine just right now? And the guy's like, yeah, of course. So they go through this 5-minute routine, and the doctor's like, okay, I want you to do this 5-minute routine, just 5 minutes, 2 times a week, that's it. Excuse me. But the point is, the doctor just wanted him to start small. And the guy was like, oh, 10 minutes a week, right? 2 5-minute sessions a week, no problem. Like, are you serious? And the doctor's like, yeah, let's start with that. I'll check up with you in another 4 weeks. Now, 4 weeks later, the patient comes back and is like, doc, guess what? I've been doing this program every single day for 10 minutes before I have dinner. And the fact that they dropped that threshold from 45 minutes down to 5 minutes made it easy enough where in his head was like, oh yeah, no problem. And a lot of the times it's kind of like when you tell yourself you're gonna go out for a 30-minute run and you think of running for 30 minutes, it's like, I'm gonna stay in bed, I'm gonna hit snooze, and I'll get out of this bed in about an hour from now. However, if you can just get yourself to put on your shoes and get outside the door and focus on those 2 things, you can put your shoes on, you can get outside the door, it's easy. But once you're outside with your shoes on, you're not going to just stand there and not go running, right? You're gonna get yourself up, you're gonna do it. If you're lazy, you might walk, but at least you're still getting that movement in. So the point is for you to start small, start somewhere, but stay consistent, right? Because I always tell people, as long as you can stay consistent, then you can build on top of that. If you're doing 5 minutes a day, but you've nailed that 14 days in a row, guess what? Now you can do 10 minutes and 15 minutes. Instead of trying to start, 60 minutes 4 times a week or 5 times a week or doing however many workouts and then falling off the wagon in 2 or 3 weeks, which is something that happens to way too many people. So whether it's something in your diet that you want to do, I'm gonna start eating a healthy meal once per day. I'm gonna swap out breakfast, start the day off on a strong note, or maybe I'm gonna cut out sodas. Just one small action, right? When it comes to exercise, I'm gonna go walk for 5 minutes a day, jog for 5 minutes a day, do 10 push-ups every single day, but then stick to it again and again and again and again, and you're gonna realize that it's so easy to build on top of that once you've got the consistency dialed in. So again, that was really just some more high-level strategies that you can take and start applying into your own weight loss journey to help get you started on the right foot. I really hope that was helpful. If there's any other topics that you would like me to address, go ahead, drop them in the comments below. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a like and a subscribe. We're always trying to put out more videos like this to help people out when it comes to fitness, to weight loss and nutrition, and everything that has to do with health and wellness in general. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.